Hi, my name is Amy Yoder. I'm going to try to give you a little rundown of my family heritage. My maternal's grandmother maiden name was Little, spelled Liddil. You can spell it forward or backwards, which was an English name, and she kind of had the slender face and the slender nose that looked a little English. She said she was also Indian. Well, now we use the term Native American, which, by the way, is much more fitting. Did you know that Christopher Columbus, whenever he discovered America, that he actually thought that he was in India? So they called the people living there Indians, and the name stuck. My grandma, she married a Borf, and his name was actually Czechoslovakian, which is right by Russia, and the name, in fact, does sound Russian. That's on my mother's side. Now, on my father's side, all I know is that the Legenar name they think is probably German. But it's been debated because it actually could have been French, but nobody really knows for sure. But there's a lot of Germans that settled in this area, so they've all just kind of went with, yeah, it's probably German. I also learned that if I see a name that's close to Legenauer, which is spelled Lagennour, if I see a name that's close to that, then it's probably a long-distance relative. Apparently, they wanted to have their own lineage, so they changed the spelling just a little bit as soon as they hit the Americas. And there's actually some Hassenauers in Jasper, and we have some relatives in Jasper anyway. We have relatives in French Lick in the Jasper area, so I've often wondered if we're related to the Hassenauers. So I'm a little bit of everything. So to find just one thing that really talked about my heritage, and know for sure, but we all celebrated Thanksgiving. And I do remember the Borfs would celebrate Thanksgiving. All the aunts and the uncles and the cousins would come over, and they were a pretty colorful bunch. My Uncle Mike was very loud and happy, and he was always smiling and cracking jokes. He seemed very interested when other people were talking, and he nodded his head a lot. He was very good at reading people. He was married to Sue, who was also very loud, and she smiled a lot. And they would always bring with them their 3 children who were older than me. So, of course, I thought they were very cool, and we had a lot of fun. Then there was my Aunt Judy. She was a unique individual, pretty interesting. She still is. She sort of reminded you of Mike, only she could be a lot more serious. She was never much into small talk. She liked to shoot it to you straight to the point and speak her mind. Sometimes it seemed she almost had a hint of verbal aggression to her conversations. You almost felt like you were verbally assaulted after a conversation with her, maybe a little bit. But she was smart and tactful about it, and you didn't really notice it or think about it until you were gone. Anyway, everyone always ate too much. And then my grandma and my mom would clean up. And that's when the card tables would come out because it was time to play euchre. Very important part of the festivities. I was young and I had no idea what they were doing. And they thought I was too young to understand, so they wouldn't teach me. But I watched earnestly anyway. Kind of frustrated me, though, because I really think maybe I could have understood. I don't know, I was pretty young. But that was the first card game I learned to play. Of course, after that, I wanted to know how to play that. And Mike and Sue would always win, it seemed like. Every round, they always won. They were very good and very lucky. The game does involve some luck. Without the right cards, it doesn't matter how good you are. And Grandma and Grandpa were very gracious hosts. They did this every year for many years, as long as Grandpa was alive. But the food was amazing too. And my aunt Sue made something called cream of wheat pudding that was just absolutely amazing. I think I have the recipe around here somewhere. Yes, I do. It's right here. It's right here. It's really hard to see what it says. I know it is. So I'm just going to read it off to you and kind of give you an idea of how to do it. And I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's really good. So if you take your time and you actually do make this, you'll be glad that you did. Cream of wheat pudding involves 6 eggs beaten separately, 1 cup of cream of wheat, and then 1 cup of English walnuts ground, 1/2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of breadcrumbs, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And you bake this slowly in the oven at 325 in a loaf pan for about an hour. And then you take, for the cake, let's see, it says mix dry ingredients together. Oh, fold in beaten egg, last fold in egg whites, and then you bake. and then you put it in the 13 by 9 loaf pan. And then after you get it out, you whip in 6 half pints of whipping cream and crumble the cake in the whipping cream and add sugar to taste. Almost 1 1/2 cups to the cream, and add vanilla. Just a little bit of vanilla. And it's really good stuff. So anyway, let's see. My grandpa was not given too many years on this earth. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he died when I was only 11. So these Thanksgiving dinners went on until that happened, and it seemed like they just kind of fell apart. People really didn't come and do that much anymore. He was a fine man. I remember him well. He, too, always had a smile on his face and something funny to say. He did not take life too seriously and seemed to have a lot of friends. But of the two of them, Grandma and Grandpa, Grandma was the more talkative, outgoing of the two. She would be the front runner in the conversations more so than Grandpa. The word Thanksgiving seemed to stop whenever Grandpa died. I miss those times. They were one of the highlights of my childhood, and I will never forget them. Thank you for listening.